I'm Charlene Stevens, the City Administrator for the City of Cottage Grove. Joining me today for Council Update is Councilmember Justin Olsen. Today our topic is solar gardens. Councilmember, this is something that's come before the council a few times, and maybe a little background on solar gardens and why they were started coming to Cottage Grove.
Sure. I think the primary driver for solar gardens was really the fact that energy companies across the United States, including our own Xcel Energy here in the Twin Cities, have been mandated to produce a certain amount of the energy that they provide to the public through renewable resources. That might be wind, and certainly solar is another renewable resource. And as part of that drive to create additional energy through renewable resources, there have been a lot of tax credits that have been put in place and a lot of other tools that businesses can use to try and drive a higher percentage of use through renewable resources. Solar gardens are sort of the outcome of that endeavor. Solar gardens are a renewable resource that is essentially on a timeline of about 20 to 25 years. And what they do is the developer actually comes to a property owner and says, we'd like to use this space on your property, and it might be a farm field, it might be a vacant lot, anywhere that they think that they can capture the sun and produce energy. And we'd like to use it for a specific period of time, and they pay good money to rent that space, and so it's sort of a win-win on both sides. And communities across the United States, and especially across Minnesota, including ours, have had to come up with ways in which to manage that use. This is not something that was on our radar even 2 or 3 years ago, so we had to really put our thinking caps on and come up with some guidance around how we're going to manage it.
Yeah, and we had an ordinance in place, and we put an ordinance in place in October of 2015, and you had an application before you on the 20th, and that application was for a conditional use permit for about 41 acres off of Manning Avenue, and the City Council did approve that application.
That's correct. The application met all of the requirements of our ordinance. The ordinance was a very thoroughly researched ordinance. It was an ordinance that came to life after going through various iterations at the Planning Commission and the City Council level. I know staff spent an awful lot of time benchmarking other communities and how they have also managed solar gardens. And this application met all of the specific criteria based upon the ordinance requirements. So we approved it, and we certainly wish both the applicant and the property owner well with this new discovery of solar gardens.
Right, and despite having our ordinance in place and despite kind of being ahead of the curve, I think we learned a lot through the process, and the City Council also chose, following that application, to take another action on solar gardens to maybe revisit and reevaluate. As you said, it's a very changing technology, new thing, and the Council also approved a moratorium.
We did. One of the things that we did when we went through the initial phase of creating the ordinance is we looked at what are the best properties or the best sites in the city for this sort of use, and we took a very conservative approach, because what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to have these sorts of facilities that have a 20 or 25 year timeline within our MUSA or our Metropolitan Urban Services area, because MUSA really sort of dictates where development happens. And then we also knew that this year we would be going through a 30-year comp plan conversation, which we're required to do by the Met Council. And of course, we didn't want to create any hardship with respect to areas that are directly outside the MUSA, because the MUSA might move. So we took a very conservative approach, and we found sites that were neither within the MUSA or adjacent to the MUSA. Now that we've gone through a few applications and we have the Metropolitan Urban Service Area line potentially moving with the change in the comp plan, we've decided to take a temporary step back and just sort of wait to see what happens with everybody else's comp plan, including our own, and then also spend some more time with analysis on, okay, how are other communities working with these solar gardens? What have we learned from the process thus far, so that when everything's all sort of said and done, we can put something back in place that will make sense.
Okay, and so the moratorium will last 1 year. We're allowed to
Correct.
put a moratorium in place for 1 year while we kind of gather additional information and maybe restructure our ordinances and such. And so there will be no more solar applications at this time. I mean, the council has approved 2, and we've had a couple text amendments, but at this time we won't have any further. Is that correct?
That is correct. And again, I think a primary driver for that is the fact that we are in the middle of our comprehensive planning process. That is a very cumbersome process, because not only do we have to plan for our city ourselves, but we also have to then come to agreements with a lot of other governmental agencies, including the communities around us, including the Met Council, and everything fits together like a nice little puzzle piece when it's all said and done, but that takes a lot of work. So until that process comes to completion, it would be purely a guessing game on our part to make any revisions to our ordinance. So we're going to take some time, we're going to let that all play out, and then a year from now, we'll be back at the game and we'll be ready to go with some more solar gardens, hopefully.
For more information about solar gardens, contact Community Development Director Jennifer Levitt. Thank you, Councilmember Olsen.
And thank you.